please welcome to the stage Vice President of Industry at Schneider Electric, Carlos Urbano.
Wow, such great solutions shared by Rob. I'm really excited to see more and more customers adopting Connect. But let's now switch into a conversation. I am Carlos Urbano. I'm the Vice President of Industrial Automation. And what does it really mean? We help industries to be more efficient. We help them to increase productivity and also to transform digitally. We just learned from Rob that data must be at the center of any enterprise that wants to remain to the future. But we all know that's not only about data. We also need the right people. We also need the right talent to really drive this change. And also sustainable actions to make our organizations to keep growing. That's why I will invite to the stage someone that has a massive experience on this topic and will show us how passionate he is about data, about people, and about sustainability. So I ask you to help me welcome the CEO and founder of Circular Ecosystems, Stephen McGurk. Stephen.
Good to see you, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen, thank you so much to join us.
Great to see
I'm
you.
really glad to have you here. So to warm up, could you help us giving an overview of the circular ecosystems and how the business came about?
Certainly. Well, I'll turn the clock back a little bit, maybe just to 2018. I was CEO running a technology in Perth, Western Australia, and we're actually capturing CO2 emissions and locking it into a carbon solution, taking that carbon solution downstream and making fertiliser. So we were liaising with the Kwinana Industries Council and the Kwinana Industry Precinct itself, industrial precinct. And at that time, we're looking to deploy this technology as a green solution coming into the precinct to change the way fertilisers were made. At that same time, I met the Kwinana Industries Council, who was this collective body of all the representation companies in the precinct itself. And they were going through this carbon reduction program. So I got to witness this incredible collaboration between industrial actors in the precinct about how they were going to decarbonise. It was actually pretty interesting. I'd never seen companies come together to solve a problem like that before. I'd met research professors from Murdoch University who were down there doing industrial symbiosis research, trying to understand how these byproducts from one company could be valuable inputs for another company. And I met some incredible people along the way. In fact, we were using Aviva software with our technology at the time to understand how these reactions were occurring in this vessel when we made a carbon solution. I'm pretty sure I was Aviva's smallest global client at that time, but the collaboration we had from the very beginning was just intense. It was just so good. And obviously we met Schneider and continued that collaboration. So we got to the end of that period. We left that technology to continue its commercialization path. And, that experience was so rich. It was too intense to let go, really, for me. So I grabbed a few people that had been instrumental on that journey, and we literally sat down with a whiteboard and created circular ecosystems. We believed that this problem that we saw in the precinct, whilst we saw some good attributes, we knew what was going on in the precinct was really challenging, and we created a solution to that problem.
Yeah, it's really great to see that you are driving innovation towards sustainability. We can see the passion. It's clear that your business is building a really strong reputation around sustainability. But for the industrial precincts, What does net zero look like, in your opinion?
Well, let's put this on the table. Industrial precincts are responsible for about 30% of global emissions, so it's an important piece we need to look at. And our sense is that industrial precincts are at an inflection point. They're facing significant headwinds. There's a lot of missed synergies in the precinct, so there's a lot of waste. They're linear. They have this take, make, waste flow. A lot of them are analogue. They haven't even digitalised. They're heavy emitters. There's shared infrastructure, jetties, roads, pipes that are ageing and leaking and falling apart, and there's not investment coming into the precinct to support that. There's an energy transition. So it's a pretty long list of headwinds that these precincts are now facing. And on that analysis for us, we flipped that completely around and we said that the solution to address this is actually shared infrastructure. Shared digital infrastructure is the solution, where we can take lag data and bring it into current time-based data, and we can start to make informed strategic intervention decisions. And when we started to model that out, we started to see things like transformation, right? So we're taking the precinct from analog to digital, Industry 5.0. That's pretty significant. Environmental benefits, reduced waste, lower emissions, economic benefits of lower costs, new revenue streams that companies haven't seen before coming in. And then we had things like regulatory compliance. You know, the other thing we witnessed was that precincts are competing for investment dollars by state and federal governments, and these precincts don't actually know how to differentiate themselves against other precincts. And so this was a way of creating that point of difference and getting access to those benefits, social benefits of job creation.
That's great.
And then finally, sustainability. You know, this was the key piece for us, that decarbonisation actually becomes a byproduct of doing really good business in the precinct, a sustainable model that goes beyond net zero. And what we're building today with the help of this digital infrastructure is the foundation for what will be the way industrial precincts operate into the future.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the challenges and potential obstacles you were facing on the journey, right? But on the other hand, some emerging technologies that we have to combine, finding solutions to those obstacles. But to drive it, you need the right talents, right? And how are you attracting those talents today?
Well, we're not attracting them today. We know they have to come in, right? And we see that, I think the talent piece, looking at the required skills for this next reimagined industrial precinct, is very deep, and there's lots of nuances to it. We actually have a collaboration in Western Australia with Murdoch University, and you know, I'm really encouraged this year. There's something like 70 students doing their environmental engineering studies. They're doing industrial symbiosis as a subunit of that, and so later this year we'll be able to bring those students down into the precinct and let them loose into the precinct to kind of see how we can actually take those learnings. So that's at university level, and we need to grow our collaboration with more national universities and global universities as well. But we also need to take this to tertiary and secondary education. And I'm a big believer that the creation of a circular ecosystem begins with social license, and so we need to have a community-based approach to this model, and we need to reach out to the community. And in reaching out, we can start to educate and talk about these skill sets required. But in the short term, we've got data science coming into the precinct, we have green technologies, we have some fascinating opportunities that really start to shine a light on why you'd want to come and create and attract talent. And I feel like if we're going to make the precinct a magnet for investment, it's going to be a magnet for talent, surely.
And naturally, these talents will come in, right?
I think so.
Definitely. Yeah. For me, I can see your connection on the way to bring those talents as part of this pool in the industrial precincts, and it's something that's definitely needed for the future.
Yes.
But now switching to the technical platforms, how do you see Connect supporting the circularity in those industrial precincts?
Well, I often describe Connect, and we refer to it as like an advanced industrial intelligence platform. That's what's required for an ecosystem. And so Connect is what we refer to as the central nervous system of the whole ecosystem. It actually can't survive without this. And it's by no accident that Connect is not Aviva Connect, it's actually Connect. And so a really important attribute to the platform is that it remains agnostic. It has an open architecture approach to it, and that allows us to fully customize the requirements for the ecosystem in an industrial precinct. And you know, this is not a plug-and-play technology. This is not a switch we're just going to sort of turn on and we have this ecosystem. Every precinct has its own nuance and needs to be designed and built according to that nuance. Is it a hydrogen hub? Is it a general heavy industrial area? Or, you know, what specific attributes or nuances does that precinct have that we should cater for? And so what we're doing with Connect is we're bringing some of those new capabilities in for our first pilot projects. We've got things like intelligence-driven visualization technology that allow us to take a full systems view of the whole precinct. And I'm presenting tomorrow afternoon, and we'll start to display and show you some of these dashboards that we're creating for the precinct itself. Data science, but we've spoken a lot about AI this morning, but we'll be using analytical AI as well so that we can take that down at a granular level. I've mentioned green technologies, the catering for digital passports and guarantee of origin, so supply chain becomes a really critical piece to this. Of course, of most of these industrial clusters are ports attached, and so we need to be able to cater for the ports and understand the nuances around that as well. So this all finishes up with, okay, what does this look like? It's a systems view of a functioning ecosystem. And I saw earlier some dashboards. It's really like a control center for the whole precinct, but we can look at our carbon intensities for the whole precinct. We can see how we're tracking to our carbon reduction program. We can actually look at the intensities of how much carbon have we sequestered and how much carbon have we actually utilised in valuable commodities, like we were making fertiliser from CO2. We can look at the...
for me was...
Yeah, so it just goes on. You know, the ecosystem, the export intensities, and then we can actually connect precincts up within a whole connected country. So we've just done a test for Western Australia. We've connected all of the strategic industrial areas of the whole state, and that dashboard is a dashboard that we've actually provided for government, because I want to come back to that sort of, we want to make it attractive for them to want to invest into the precinct. So as a stakeholder, we think the state government is a significant stakeholder, and we should be able to tell them at any given time the number of jobs we've created through the model, what revenue that we've produced through these various precincts, the export intensities of various precincts relative to their location of mining, iron ore, or wherever. And so it's a really exciting period that we're at.
Yeah, but Stephen, implementing such kind of technologies is definitely not easy. I'm sure you find a lot of obstacles in front of you, in front of those implementations. Can you share with us how you overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, you know, it's a great question. I saw again earlier on one of the slides, you know, we face the same issue. The precincts face the same issues as individual companies do, right? So collaboration, data collaboration, security of data, sharing of data, etc. We're doing some work with the World Economic Forum. For the last 8 months, we're collaborating with 33 global precincts around the world, and 24 of those have ports. And a significant, what I call like an elephant in the room, is this, it's a lack of narrative on how we get the momentum moving from a precinct to this systems view. I call it silo to synergy. You know, how do we sort of turn around from our individual operations to take a precinct collaborative view of the model? And so one of the key parts to that, I think, is to make sure the industrial actors understand the key benefits of this model for them. So we spoke about the C-suite earlier. You know, what are those economic benefits of cost savings? What do they actually attribute in dollar terms, and can we measure that? And what are those new revenue streams? So that's one piece. We're also going granular to do a piece on vulnerability analysis for companies and the precinct itself. So we're looking at systemic risk and emerging threats in the precinct. What are the interdependencies that we have between companies? Late last year, BHP decided to temporarily close Nickel West refinery at Kwinana due to the nickel price, and it was a very significant decision. Within probably 2 hours of that decision, we actually shut Kwinana's symbiotic exchange model down on our dashboard, and we left Nickel West on as a single light in this, think of this Starship Enterprise in this single light. And we could see they were exchanging significant byproducts into the precinct, and there were companies receiving those byproducts that were relying on those byproducts. And so as a result of that, we drilled in further and further, and we were able to inform those companies, specifically what those byproducts were, what the quantities were, and what some of the solutions were for the precinct to start building some resilience to stop these interdependencies occurring. So this early piece of work on systemic and emerging threats is a pre-risk piece. And we're sharing this work with the World Economic Forum in a hope that we can actually... The plan is to create a momentum of maybe half a dozen industrial actors in the precinct that take responsibility for the balance of the precinct to want to turn around and adopt this. But, if we look at precincts, they all come to an industrial precinct because they want to share energy, or they want to share the jetty, or access to things that as a base collaboration piece. So I think all the ingredients are there, and we're just trying to, I can't say we've got the solution yet, but we've got keys and we're trying to unlock this value, and I think we're getting really close.
Yeah, sounds great. I think we still have some time for the potentially last question. So could you give us some more examples? You shared some already, some more real examples in the industrial precinct.
Yeah, well, again, the symbiotic exchange at Kwinana is a really interesting one, and we're doing work in other precincts around Australia and in Europe, but Kwinana is a very unique precinct. That symbiotic exchange has been going for nearly 20 years, and today there's something like 174 contracts being exchanged between 58 companies, and those exchanges are made up of water, energy, and leftover byproducts. The problem is, everyone puts Kwinana up on this stage to say how amazing they are, and they are. However, that model is on an Excel spreadsheet today. It's 5 years since they last updated the spreadsheet. A lot has changed in Kwinana over that 5 years, and there's a lot of information on the exchanges we don't know. So we're modelling a detailed input-output model. We're going to actually understand, we've done that off a biofuel refinery, and we're going to understand what are all of the inputs coming into the company to make what they make, what are the outputs, and where are they exported to, and where do they go. But really importantly, we're going to attach a waste and an emissions profile onto this model. And our intention is to expand the existing symbiotic model to a very detailed, expansive byproduct model, but include waste and emissions, because today Kwinana has no idea where they're sitting on their carbon reduction program. The individual companies might, but the precinct has no idea. And so we want to turn that alive by making data available so they can make an informed decision, and if they're falling behind on those targets, they could make a strategic intervention and speed things up. So we're bringing in green steam into the precinct to be shared amongst some 2 or 3 of their individual companies. So, and we're sharing all this work with World Economic Forum so that we can also share these learnings with these other precincts as well.
Yeah, Stephen, really such great examples, very tangible for me. For me, you were able really to connect all these 3 elements, data, people, and sustainability all together, and really helping industries to make the impossible possible. Really, really great. I really appreciate the chat, and I also invite the audience to give you a round of applause for this brilliant discussion.
Thank you, Urbano.